Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Tom Hagerty. He is a retired corporate executive, business fixer, career spanning 45 years, made numerous presentations at public and private events, written articles, op-ed pieces, and has been interviewed by a variety of print publications and electronic media outlets. And he's also an author. He has written The Business of Relationship. We'll talk about that also. And he says that we can use a lot of the wisdom of business leaders that can radically improve our personal and professional relations. We'll talk all about this, learn from him. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you, AJ. I'm really pleased to be here and looking forward to serving your audience today. It's a great pleasure to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Tom. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how every problem, as you say, is a relationship problem. So we'll talk about how one can fix relationships and can fix everything that matters around that. We'll talk about all of this. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, Tom, so that people know who they are listening to.
Okay. Well, I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the USA. I'm 71 years old, and I am retired, as you said. I am also the oldest of 10 children. So I have a sister who is my junior by 19 years, and all of the rest of us came in between that. But I had a long career in corporate America, if you will, with both public and private companies. I had my own consulting firm where, as you said, I was a business fixer. I was called a workout guy. I was somebody who came into a company at the behest of a bank or a lawyer or an accountant saying that their client or customer was in trouble and they needed someone to fix them. You know, usually it was financial, sometimes it was marketing, sometimes it was tax liabilities, but whatever it was, I was the guy who came in and helped right the ship, if you will, and get the company moving in the right direction again. And subsequent to that, I gathered a lot of wisdom. I'm a quote guy, if you will. So I am a big believer that we can take wisdom from quotes from both business leaders as well as politicians, religious leaders, sports figures, etc. And I think if those quotes inspire you to move in a certain direction that is more productive, then that quote itself is instructive. So that's basically my background in a nutshell in 3 minutes or less.
Absolutely, Tom. So I want to understand, how did you get into from the fixing of businesses to talking about fixing relationships? Help us understand how this shift happened. Or was it from the very beginning you talk about all this?
Well, I think it was actually a little of both. I think there's nuance in everybody's life. And for me, the foundation of the book was a series of quotes that I just thought were inspirational and wondered if there were others like them. You know, there were a couple of quotes I think that I wrote about very early in essays, basically to my children. There was a Steve Jobs quote that talks about the fact that his mortality is actually something that stimulates him to make major decisions. There was a quote from Jack Welch, who was a former chairman of General Electric. And Mr. Welch said, "Change before you have to." He said that very decidedly in a business context. It was almost a warning to his chieftains of the various business units to, move in the right direction and become more profitable, become number one or number two in their marketplace. But when you say change before you have to, that can be change before you have to about a budding addiction or a passive aggressive nature or an aggressive abusive relationship. So that's really where the foundation came in. And once I was stimulated by some of these, I began to say, are there others? And there are many other quotes from a variety of different leaders. I chose business because that's my background. But I think there are a number of quotes that can illustrate those qualities for us that we all need in personal relationships.
Absolutely. Quotes are very good Tom, it can spur people to do a lot of things, but then many a time some of these course, are we sure that many of these business leaders walk the talk? They can talk big, but can they have they also walked that way that we follow? For example, when you talk about the wisdom of business leaders about relationships, you see in today's time people talk about that personal relationships should be good, office is office and home is home, and people should focus on office at home rather than spending your whole time with such business leaders who can spoil all your relationships because they don't care about you. There is this great resignation, quiet quitting, and I don't know what wisdom can be learned from such leaders. So I want to understand then, what leaders are you talking about here, Tom?
Well, I would say that, I'd make a comment at the front end that none of us are saints. Okay. And business leaders certainly fit into that category. If you're looking for inspiration from them, you're not going to find it in every corner. But I think many of them, and the ones I cited to you, somebody like Steve Jobs, somebody like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jack Welch, Sheryl Sandberg, Carly Fiorina, Anita Roddick, many, many others have said things that are inspirational if they can be twisted in the direction, as I did, of illustrating some quality of a personal relationship. But clearly, nobody is going to be on their best behavior at all times. I mean, Sheryl Sandberg, for instance, said, each one of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. Again, she said that in a decidedly business context in the aftermath of the Cambridge Analytica scandal at Facebook, when she was actually thrown under the bus by Mark Zuckerberg for that, blamed for that, took a lot of heat for that. So she is not a saint, but I think on balance, her life indicates that she has the credibility to say something like that. It was basically an apology. Each one of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. So it was basically an apology and a recognition, but I think it can be illustrative for us in a broader context if we want to bend it that way. And I bent it in the direction of resilience, which is one of the 12 fundamental qualities of a good personal relationship. So again, none of us are saints, AJ. We are all earning our stripes daily in human relations. But I think many of these leaders are exemplary within a certain context and understanding that we all are human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I understand that, Tom. So to understand, you talk about that every relationship, every problem is a relationship problem. Why do you say so? And is this also a quote from anyone else, or this is your observation?
No, this is my observation. It may never qualify as being in the Hall of Fame for salient quotes, but I really believe that when you look at the totality of humankind, we are a species that is built for relationships. We're not built for isolation. We're not built for being solo players in this world. So if there is an issue, if there is a problem, it is likely found in the relationship at the beginning. I mean, we're also a species that likes to solve problems, and typically we tend to solve problems by starting at the middle. And you know that, and I know that if you're in an argument with your wife, or you're in an argument with a child or a business colleague, you want to fix it at that moment and move forward from it. But typically we start halfway there. We don't look back at what might be driving the problem. How did that person grow up? What did we say? What did we do? How was the relationship founded? And I think for those of us who want to look fearlessly in the mirror, we can easily say that the majority of my problems are a relationship problem. I didn't pay attention to the foundational qualities of the person that I'm in conflict with. So therefore, I can solve the immediate issue, and I can put a Band-Aid on it for now, and I can feel good by going back to my office or back to my study at home or whatever I'm doing. But I haven't really gotten to the core of why this happened. And that's where I come in and say, I think every problem is a relationship problem. And the better we are at resolving the core issues, the more robust the relationship will be.
Absolutely. So how do the CEO's insights, mostly, they are applicable in business. Business is a very different ball game altogether. How do we utilize it in our day-to-day life, about CEO's wisdom talk?
Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. I think the issue about being able to recognize that each one of us is more than the worst thing we ever done, the Sheryl Sandberg quote. I think that can help us with a sense of perspective, and it can help us with a sense of resilience as well, because so many of us, when we, as we say here in America, when we get kicked in the shins, we retreat. We get out of the boxing ring instead of staying in the fight. And I think what Sandberg was saying is that if we have that kind of perspective, that we're going to make mistakes, we're all better than the worst thing we've ever done. We can then move forward from that. I think another quote that I had a lot of fun with was Bill Gates from Microsoft fame, and now his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation doing great works around the world. But Gates said, "Success is a lousy teacher because it seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose." And how informative is that for us in relationships, that whether it's the 20-year marriage, the 10-year-old child, the 15-year relationship with a boss or a colleague at work, if you're stepping back from that, AJ, and you're saying that I've always had success in this relationship, so everything's fine. I think, like Gates said, in a decidedly business context, that can seduce you into malaise. That can seduce you into taking things for granted, or any number of deleterious conduct in a relationship that just doesn't continue stimulating it. I mean, and I had over 50 quotes that illustrate 12 different qualities like this. And I think the wisdom there, somebody else said, Catherine Graham, who was the publisher of the Washington Post, she's deceased now, but she said, "It's terribly uncomfortable, but you have to realize some questions don't have answers." And I think that's instructive in a relationship. Again, she was talking about her reporters. She was talking about the difficulties of being in the daily newspaper business. But when she said, some questions don't have answers, and it's a difficult lesson to learn, I think that can be instructive to us as well in relationships, that you're going to have to be satisfied sometimes with obscurity. And we need to grapple with that when we relate with each other.
Absolutely. So I want to understand in this case that, I will read all the quotes. I will have all the wisdom from these business leaders. But what about the other side? If they have not read the same quotes, or they do not have the same wisdom, or do not want to understand the same wisdom, then how do I fix those relationships? Because then it will be, some things are bound to be broken. It will be broken. No use of fixing that. How do you look at that?
I look at it this way, and I say that each one of us can only do what we can do. We can only control what we can control, as the Stoics said. So when you are in the process of wanting to fix a relationship or wanting to expand and grow a relationship, it begins with you and it ends with you, because that's all you can control. What I would say also is that if we all realize, each one of us, that we're built for relationship, we're built for community, we are built for working together and living together, I think there will be a greater sense of awareness. But I'm not delusional in this. I think the world right now is pretty fractured. I know we are here in America. You can pick up any newspaper and see how divided our country is. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But for those of us that aren't afraid to look in the mirror and say, what is my role? I think that's a challenge, not a weakness.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I don't want to get into a political discussion, but you see, if courts are important, wisdom is important, then the president is talking about making America great again. Why is that not alluring to many? Why is it leading to difficult relationship rather than just the quote impacting everyone to come under the same umbrella? I
Right.
want to understand the impact of quotes and wisdom of people who talk from moral high ground, so-called moral high ground, and actually people on the ground who are bearing the brunt of the heat and dust of everyday life. How do they make their life better by just words?
Well, I think regarding our political discussion here in America and the division that we're experiencing, I would say this. One of the reasons for the division is that President Trump is proposing a radical departure from every previous administration. And that is a difficult thing. I've been in that world, so to speak, in a small way in the turnaround situations, where a company and its staff looks at themselves and says, we think we're a little bit off course. We think we are generally moving in the right direction, but the banker, the lawyer, and the accountant say, you're in deep trouble. And that's why you need this guy, Tom Hagerty, or someone like him to come in and fix it, because you don't see the problem that you're in. I think there is some of that in America where the Trump agenda is such a radical departure that it is very, very scary because we just haven't had anything close to that. So I would say that's one comment. The other comment I would make to your point about the relationships and how do we fix this on the ground, I think we have to begin in our society and maybe others around the world. We have to begin to talk to one another, not to demonize one another. There was a time when in our country, Republicans and Democrats could disagree violently on the floor of the Senate or violently on the floor of the House in very fiery debates, but then repair and go to lunch together, the same day. We've lost that here. We are tending to say, if you don't agree with me, not only don't you agree with me, but you are a bad person because of that. And it goes up and down the scale of what should be done. And I think that's something we've lost, is just the ability to disagree, but yet recognize that we're all in this together.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's much to learn from you. Let's learn a bit more from your book, The Business of Relationships. Tell us a bit about this book. Who is this book for, Tom?
Well, I would say foundationally, the book is for really two different segments, if you will. One would be a segment that would say, I am absolutely fearless about looking in the mirror. I want to improve myself. I recognize that in a variety of ways, it could be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, in a variety of ways, I'm not who I want to be and where I want to be. So therefore, I'm going to look in the mirror first. I'm going to say, what can I do? That would be a critical thing for an audience, because if you're afraid of looking in the mirror, if you're going to push blame off on another direction all the time, this book is not for you. I don't think the book is really for someone who says, I'm a sports guy, or I'm a religious guy, or I'm a political guy, so business people don't mean anything to me. I don't expect people to know all 52 people that I cite in the quote. But if you don't know who Bill Gates or Steve Jobs was, if you don't know who Warren Buffett is, or Anita Roddick, or, some of the big names in the book, I would say the book's probably not for you either. If you don't want to put in the work, I would say the book is not for you, because not only is this a series of essays with the quote as a foundation, But there's also an action plan after each one of those sessions or each one of those essays that helps people understand that you can take this essay forward now. You can do this thing, which should repair or help, expand, if you will, a relationship. So I think, again, if you're not self-reflective, this book is not for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So wisdom from business leaders. As a fixer, as you used to fix things for a lot of businesses, Tom, what would you tell about business leaders learning from outside? What book should they read? Or is it that this is also the book for them? What do you think? Why did you think they fell into all those problems that you had to come in and fix it for them? Was it also the relationship problem?
It could be. It could be. I mean, here's an example for you. We cited him earlier with his success quote. Bill Gates is not, as we know, a human being that operates at the highest level all the time. He got a divorce from his longtime wife. They seemed to separate relatively amicably. His behavior was not appropriate in many ways. He wasn't even appropriate in the business setting, but he inspired tremendous loyalty. But both he and Steve Jobs were known as tough guy bosses. Jack Welch was known as a tough guy boss. He has a past. So nobody in this life is going to get out unscathed, and I think, there are some business leaders in the book who are still alive. Others are already deceased, but I think people like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, Sam Altman, anybody that you want to name that is younger and up and coming and maybe not having the gravitas yet. I think they can learn from this book as well, because really, when you look at relationships, there are a number of publications, and I cite these in my book, but a number of publications and outlets and media and so forth gravitate to around 12 different qualities that are essential to perfect, personal relationships, not perfect relationships. And that's where I try to bring it. So if someone wanted to read this, whether they're in or out of business, they'd say, do I have the reputation of being trustworthy? And if not, how can I accelerate it? Do I have a sense of appropriate risk? Do I have a sense of prioritizing people in my life? Do I have commitment? Do I have resilience? Do I have an appropriate orientation to perspective? Those are all qualities of good personal relationships, and I think they can learn from these leaders.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn from you, Tom, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of business leaders also even can learn from you and your book. So what is the best way for them to do so?
Well, the book is entitled The Business of Relationships. My name is on the screen, so you can search by either one of those. And the best place to go for a lot of us is Amazon. It's available in both Kindle as well as print versions, and depending on your location, Amazon will fulfill that order in a day or two. That is clearly the best way to do it.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
AJ, thank you very much, and I hope we served your audience well.